I sat across from Mason, a glass table separating us in his sleek office. Harsh rays of sunlight sliced through the blinds, casting sharp lines across his smug expression. "Then fire me," I said softly. His eyes flickered, thrown off by how calm I sounded. "Jenna, you're replaceable. Don't make me regret giving you 10 years." The words hit harder than if he'd screamed. I had come in this morning prepared to pitch a project that could reshape Horizon dynamics. Instead, I found myself in Mason Grant's office at exactly 7:59 a.m., hearing him dismantle over a decade of sacrifice. I had given 11 years. Years of forgotten birthdays, all-nighters, cleaning up messes no one else could manage. I had poured myself into this company, only to be cast aside like an outdated device. I lifted my chin and met Mason's eyes. The CEO of Horizon, polished, magnetic, always dressed like success itself, looked every bit the part of a leader. But beneath the suit and charm, he was a control addict, thriving off loyalty he never intended to return. And now, he was replacing me with Olivia, his 22-year-old niece who had just graduated and couldn't even define an algorithm in the one meeting she attended. He wanted me to train her. I said no. He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. Nepotism doesn't justify itself. It just demands compliance. The office lighting felt brutal. Too bright. Too exposed. Mason leaned in like a judge ready to grant clemency. "Security will see you out. Effective now." My pulse surged, but I didn't let it show. A storm of disbelief and embarrassment swirled inside me, but I buried it. I gave a faint smile, so restrained it almost hurt. "Final decision?" I asked. He nodded smugly, thinking he'd won. If only he knew. The office seemed to shrink. Where I'd once celebrated wins and pulled marathon nights now felt like a trap. My desk, my command post for 11 years, was alien, sanitized, like it had never held a single piece of my life. I placed a plain cardboard box on its surface and began to pack slowly. Carefully. Not because I had much, but because my hands would shake otherwise. My favorite pen. Torn notes from midnight brainstorms. A chipped mug with a fading Horizon logo that once meant belonging. Whispers slithered through the office. Eyes peeked over screens, then darted away. Some coworkers offered quick, guilty glances. Others looked at me too long. "Can you believe this?" someone whispered behind a divider. After all she did, I acted like I didn't hear. Pretended I didn't feel the sting of being dissected like a cautionary tale. Mason's voice shattered the tension again. Cold. Efficient. Cut her access within the hour. Revoke everything. Security nodded, already typing. My digital fingerprint vanished with each keystroke. Access revoked. Files deleted. Credentials gone. A blinking cursor replaced years of mastery. Still, I packed in silence. My expression steady. My chest screaming. There was no space for rage. Not yet. Rage is loud. And I operate best in silence. I reached the last item, a framed photo. As I touched the bottom drawer, my fingers brushed against something small, sleek, familiar. A matte black USB stick. I picked it up like it was nothing. But my heartbeat told another story. It was warm, humming against my skin like it knew. Inside were root keys. Private scripts. The final lock on Sentinel. Nobody knew about this drive. Not the company. Not Mason. No one. I slid it into my jacket pocket like spare change and closed the drawer. My heart, my plans, my dignity, all packed with care. When I finally stood, the office was unnervingly quiet. I cradled the box and walked out. No backward glance. If anyone noticed the ice in my gaze, they said nothing. But I felt it, the sharp edge of purpose slicing through the silence. This wasn't over. It was just the first move. Traffic on 7th Avenue crawled. Horns flared. But inside the car, the noise couldn't touch the roaring in my head. New York hadn't changed. Coffee vendors. Bikers weaving through traffic. Skyscrapers glinting in the morning sun. But everything inside me had shifted. I clutched the wheel. The box beside me slid, as the car turned. Inside, broken mementos of a career, an old mug, crumpled notes, pens that inked 1,000 unrecognized hours. Silence filled the space, not just from betrayal, but from loss. 11 years. I built Sentinel from scratch. Gave it weekends, nights, and bloodshot eyes. For what? Empty promises, stock, advancement, stability. All gone in 5 minutes. My phone buzzed. A text from St. Margaret's Hospital. Jenna, treatment cost updated. Please confirm payment. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. I had been shouldering this in silence. The meds, the specialists, the bills. Every late night at Horizon was meant to protect my mother's future. Now Mason had stolen that, too. My rage came fast, hot, and almost blinding. I saw myself slamming the steering wheel, screaming into leather. But rage is chaos. And I don't do chaos. I pulled into a quiet alley, shut off the engine, and opened my laptop. My breathing slowed. My fingers were no longer shaking. I was in control now. The secure portal flickered to life. Token input. Biometric check. One step at a time. Smooth. Unstoppable. Then home. Code streamed across the screen like an old friend. Sentinel 9. My fortress. My system. Horizon may own the servers, but they didn't hold its soul. I did. The architecture. The gates. The failsafes. All tied to me. Especially Layer 17. My personal creation. I ran my fingers over the USB drive. The root key pulsed in my hand, quiet, powerful, alive. Mason thought he ended the story this morning. He didn't realize it was the prelude. A second ping. A message from Horizon's board. Live demo 9:15 a.m. confirmed system integrity. I almost laughed. Let them try. Sentinel wasn't just software. It was a fortress. A vault with no doors, unless I open them. For the first time today, I didn't feel discarded. I felt focused. They took my job. They took my office. But the thing they needed most still answered to me. In the hush of the car, my laptop's glow lit my face. The city outside surged on. Trucks rattled by. People rushed to jobs and appointments. Inside, only the steady clack of my keyboard filled the space. The secure portal unlocked with the weight of my credentials. Code unspooled like DNA. I moved through it like a surgeon, flawless, unhurried. Sentinel 9. My code. My nights. My fingerprint in every function. Horizon thought they erased me. They forgot who wrote the system. Layer by layer, I checked the gates. Each response smooth as silk. Layer 1, verified. Layer 2, confirmed. Layer 3 green. I exhaled. Slow. Measured. The numbers rose. The game had begun. Each layer I verified sent a surge through my body, like blood rushing into limbs long asleep. 11 layers in, I paused. A strange stillness crept over me, the kind that comes before a storm tears open the sky. This wasn't about bruised pride. This was reclamation. It was about staying alive. By the time I reached Layer 17, my heartbeat had settled into a cold, rhythmic pulse. On the screen, red flash. Final security protocol. Biometric scan and private key required. I reached into my jacket, fingertips grazing the cold edge of the matte black USB. Its weight felt heavier than plastic. It felt like defiance, like leverage. I plugged it in. The click was soft but thundered in my ears. The interface sprang to life, alert and waiting. I pressed my thumb to the scanner. It blinked, then processed. A quiet tone confirmed it. Access granted. For the first time since Mason ambushed me that morning, something deep inside me lit up. Not rage. Not even satisfaction. Power. Real power. Not the shallow kind stamped on business cards or echoing from podiums. This was earned. Etched in late nights, foresight, and the audacity to believe in myself when no one else did. The dashboard shifted. A new alert ran across the screen. License termination, scheduled for 2 minutes post unauthorized deactivation. A laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. It was short and sharp, almost bitter. He had no idea. The second Mason ordered my termination and revoked my access, the countdown had started. In precisely 120 seconds, Horizon Dynamics would forfeit legal control of Sentinel. They thought I was disposable. I turned them into a liability. I leaned back in my seat, calm now, watching the invisible timer wind down somewhere uptown. Mason was likely shaking hands, charming suits with empty promises. He didn't realize he'd already lost. I was sitting in a car, coffee cooling beside me, holding the core of $1 billion system in my jacket pocket. And they called me replaceable?
No.
Mason was the one who was expendable. By the time he entered the Horizon boardroom at exactly 9:15 a.m., Mason looked like he owned the building, every step smooth, confident, rehearsed. His silver tie gleamed under the recessed lights. Investors from Vance Capital filled the room, waiting for a demo that would finalize a $1 billion agreement. "Gentlemen," he began, voice polished with charm, "today, you'll witness the pinnacle of cybersecurity. Sentinel-9. Mild applause broke out as Mason nodded toward the engineering team. Monitors lit up. Horizon's signature interface loaded. Fingers danced across keyboards. For 2 seconds, it seemed perfect. Then every screen froze. Authentication required. Architect biometric missing. The message flashed in bold red. The lead engineer stiffened. Eyes widened. And then another message. Access denied. Contact system architect. Whispers erupted like sparks. Faces turned. Tension climbed. Mason's grin twitched, his voice hard.
Run it again.
Reset.
They tried. Once. Twice.
3 times. Same result. Across the table, Olivia looked uncomfortable, shifting in her pristine white blazer. Her glossed lips parted slightly, but no words came out. "Is there an issue?" one investor asked, tone clipped and dangerous. "Just a minor hiccup," Mason replied, voice silk hiding static. "Give us a moment." Behind the mask, he was spiraling. Sentinel was supposed to be airtight. Now it was deadlocked. He pulled out his phone, jabbing at the screen with shaking fingers. Across the city, I was sitting at a cafe near the park, the scent of espresso swirling around me. The world outside moved on, conversations, silver spoons tapping against ceramic, laptops humming. Inside my own head, it was quiet, controlled. The glow from my laptop screen confirmed it. Authentication lock active. The phone buzzed. "Mason." I let it ring twice before answering. "Jenna," he snapped. "No pleasantries. You've crossed a line. This is theft. I'll bury you in court." I stirred my coffee, slow and deliberate. "Check the patent registry."
What?
"Do it," I said, then ended the call. The silence that followed felt seismic. Horizon didn't own Sentinel. They rented it. And that lease ended the second Mason fired me. I closed the laptop, letting the peace of the cafe settle over me again. Around me, no one knew that the foundations of Horizon Dynamics were crumbling, right while I stirred cream into my coffee. Chaos surged uptown. But here was calm. And for the first time that day, I smiled. Back at Horizon, Mason slammed his office door so hard the glass vibrated. He paced, rage pacing through his veins. The company's legal counsel sat pale-faced at the conference table, eyes darting across the patent database. When the results loaded, she blinked like the screen had slapped her. "Sir, Sentinel-9 isn't registered under Horizon Dynamics." "What are you talking about?" he barked. "The patent is held by Collins Innovations LLC. Owner, Margaret Collins."
He stopped.
"Who the hell is Margaret Collins?" "She's Jenna's mother." The air was vacuum tight for a second. Then Mason's fury detonated. "Call every lawyer we've got. I want that patent frozen.
Now."
Meanwhile, I was home, laptop open on the counter, the morning light cutting through half-closed blinds. My coffee sat cooling beside me, untouched. The stillness I'd found earlier now gave way to something crawling under my skin. An email pinged at 10:48 a.m. Subject: Urgent, legal action filed. I clicked it open. pulse suddenly uneven. It was from Cooper, my attorney, the only person who knew every detail. Horizon filed an emergency motion to freeze your LLC's patent. If approved, they regain temporary control until court resolves ownership. You need to act immediately. My chest tightened. This was the first time fear cracked through. Every move I'd made had been methodical.
Perfect.
But Mason had resources, desperation, and the kind of money that moved judges before lunch. If the injunction was granted, I could lose everything. I took a deep breath, forcing my mind to focus. I had the documents, the LLC registration, the time-stamped filings, the entire paper trail proving my ownership dated back 2 years. I just had to organize and submit them before Horizon's motion hit the docket. My fingers blurred over the keyboard. Encrypted archives opened. Folders loaded. Contracts were dragged and labeled for rapid filing. Cooper's number flashed. I picked up. "They'll say you violated fiduciary duty," he said immediately. But we hit back with the timeline. The LLC existed before the licensing deal. "Get it to me now." I hung up and got back to work, the sound of my typing blending with my uneven breathing. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. Inside, only my urgency spoke. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was war. And it was about survival, mine and my mother's. And if Mason wanted a legal bloodbath, he had picked the wrong enemy. Back at Horizon, Mason flung open the boardroom doors again, this time with Olivia in tow. His hand rested on her shoulder like she was the company's ace, not its liability. She was dressed to kill. Her blazer shimmered under the fluorescent lights. Her posture screamed confidence, her smile camera-ready. "Gentlemen," Mason boomed, louder than necessary. "Meet Olivia Grant, the future of Horizon's innovation division." The investors stirred. Cameras turned. Reporters raised eyebrows, but Mason didn't care. He needed to win something, anything. Olivia strutted to the command console, heels clicking like punctuation. She propped her phone against a nearby carafe, tilting it just so. "Just getting a little behind the scenes," she chirped, blissfully unaware of the tension drowning the room. The red record light blinked on, broadcasting Horizon's unraveling to every one of her followers and the finance blogs who tracked her every post. "Go ahead," Mason said tightly. "Show them how seamless Sentinel is." She smiled, entered her login with exaggerated flair, and pressed enter. For a moment, the screen flickered blue. Then the words hit like a slap. "Architect biometric verification required." Silence dropped, a gravity heavier than anything in the room. Olivia's expression shifted from polished to panicked. She typed again, faster now. Same message. "Access denied. Contact system architect." The investors exchanged tense glances. One murmured, but not quietly enough, "Where's Jenna Collins?" Mason's jaw flexed. "It's a minor system glitch," he said smoothly, voice sweetened with poison. But there was no fixing this. Every command slammed into the same dead end. Layer 17. Meanwhile, Olivia's live stream continued broadcasting the unraveling in real time. Every blinking red error, every flicker of panic on investor faces, every bead of sweat on Mason's forehead. Comments poured in like a flood no dam could hold. "Sentinel crashing live? 1.3 billion, and this is the demo?" Then came the headlines. Horizon's live launch implodes. Sentinel fails mid-pitch. Investors panic. Phones lit up like a firestorm. Stock tickers dipped, first by 3 points, then 5. Mason's face flushed crimson, and reporters scribbled with the eagerness of sharks tasting blood. Olivia, mortified, yanked her phone away, ending the stream with shaking hands. Too late. The digital damage had detonated. Across the internet, #SentinelFail trended like wildfire. Mason couldn't even look at her. His kingdom was crumbling, and the entire world was watching it burn. At 11:12 a.m., my inbox pinged with a chill that cut through the calm I'd built like a knife through silk. I barely needed to read the subject line. Alert, unauthorized attempts detected. Layer 17. My lungs locked. The room seemed to shrink. The low hum of my laptop became an alarm in disguise. They were trying to break in. I opened the logs. 10 failed login attempts in under a minute. Then 15. Then 30. These weren't amateurs. The IP addresses were cloaked, bouncing globally. This wasn't Horizon's internal team scrambling. Mason had gone full scorched earth. He had brought in professionals. My hand gripped the counter's edge, nails biting into wood as adrenaline surged through my bloodstream. If they broke through layer 17, I'd lose everything: Sentinel, my leverage, my only shot at covering my mother's care. And all the sacrifices, those 11 brutal years, would be erased with one breach.
Breathe.
Focus, Jenna. I dove into the command line, fingers moving like a surgeon's. Layer 17 wasn't a simple password gate. It was a maze I designed for this very outcome. But no wall is impenetrable forever, and these hackers were fast, relentless. A flash of Mason's face crossed my mind. The ruthless smirk. The promise to bury me. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to erase me. Another ping. Threshold exceeded. Breach probability: 63%. My pulse mirrored the number. If they reached partial access, they could reinitiate Sentinel's deployment under Horizon's name. My hands trembled. Then came the clarity. I launched a second terminal and ran a hidden script, D17_protect, P1 I'd written late one night, hoping I'd never need it. A trap. Its function was brutal but elegant. Allow the breach to appear successful, display a mock dashboard, and then detonate. The moment they reached what they thought was the master key, it would trigger a countermeasure, revoke every credential in the system, and lock down Horizon's access for 24 hours. A digital scorched earth. Lines of code raced down the screen. 10 seconds later, the system pinged. Decoy activated. Silence. No more breach attempts. They thought they'd won. They'd report back to Mason that Sentinel was back online. But when they launched, they'd slam into a firewall so complete, it would echo through quarterly earnings and shareholder meetings for years. I leaned back, chest heaving. My palms left sweat stains on the keyboard. Relief came in jagged waves. But this wasn't over. No, the battlefield had just shifted, and I was through playing defense. The Langford Hotel's private lounge reeked of wealth and legacy. Polished floors reflected light from crystal chandeliers, and the murmur of curated conversations gave the room a hum of influence. My heart thudded as I approached the corner booth. 2 sharply dressed men flanked a woman whose presence felt like standing too close to a blade. "Miss Collins," she greeted, extending a hand adorned with a platinum band. "I'm Evelyn Vance." The name struck hard. Vance Capital. The firm Mason had been chasing for months. And now they were calling me. I sat down slowly, spine straight despite the battle still raging inside. Hours ago, I was under siege. Now I was the one holding the cards. Evelyn folded her hands. "We've reviewed Horizon's licensing," she said crisply. "Without you, it's worthless. You hold the keys, literally and legally." Then her gaze sharpened. "So, what's your price?" I just breathed for a moment, letting those words settle. My price. Not what I'd cost. What I was worth. 11 years of sacrifice. Of silence. Of trading my future to fund my mother's present. Now they were asking. "I'm not selling," I said quietly. "No buyout.
I want partnership.
Full rights. A new entity. Horizon is done." Evelyn smiled, just barely. Approval hidden behind a razor-thin curve of her lips. "You're thinking bigger than Mason." "Good." She pushed a folder across the table. Inside, a term sheet. The numbers made my breath catch. Horizon couldn't match them. Not now, not ever. "One condition," I said, my voice clear. "My mother's medical fund comes first. Guaranteed. Non-negotiable." "Done," Evelyn said without hesitation. Then she added, almost casually, the twist that snapped the final chord of fear inside me. "We don't just want the code. We want you. Chief Architect, Sentinel Global. Full creative control. Write it into the contract." For the first time in days, I inhaled without tension. Not revenge. Not power. Ownership. On my terms. I signed the draft with a steady hand. Evelyn extended hers again. "Congratulations," she said softly. "You just ended Horizon." Outside, city light painted golden streaks across the glass. Somewhere uptown, Mason was clinging to a ship already sinking. And me? I wasn't drowning anymore. I was setting the course. At 10:30 a.m., I signed the official agreement. 3 strokes of a pen. And just like that, the war was over. The burden I had carried, of betrayal, of fear, of endless waiting, began to dissolve. I could finally breathe. Really breathe. Evelyn shook my hand. "Welcome to Sentinel Global, Chief Architect." The title hit different. Not just a role, a resurrection. When I stepped out of the Langford lobby, the world had already begun to tilt. My phone buzzed in a rolling storm. Breaking: Horizon shares collapse after failed Sentinel demo. Vance Capital signs exclusive with former Horizon insider. Where is Olivia Grant? Hashtag Sentinel fail trends again. Somewhere, Mason was unraveling. Within an hour, the board had stripped him of the title. The empire he clung to now burned behind closed doors. Olivia disappeared from social media, her polished brand crumbling under public scrutiny. I imagine the silence in that boardroom. The moment lawyers whispered the words he never thought he'd hear. "You never owned Sentinel." But none of it gave me satisfaction. Not Mason's fall. Not the trending shame. Not even the empire he watched collapse around him. This wasn't vengeance anymore. This was freedom. This was the moment I claimed my name back. That afternoon, the elevator doors opened to a new beginning. My new office stood in quiet contrast: clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist design, and sunlight that didn't feel like judgment. On the desk sat a single item, a brushed steel plaque etched with 6 quiet, perfect words. Chief Architect, Sentinel Global. I stood for a long moment, letting the silence wrap around me like armor. Then I placed the plaque center stage and sat in a leather chair that didn't creak under the weight of pretending. In the reflection on the glass, I didn't look like who I used to be. I looked like someone they'd never underestimate again. "They thought I was replaceable," I whispered. They were wrong. Outside, the world moved on. Honking cars, blinking signals, meetings stacked and canceled. But inside, for me, everything paused. Because this wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of everything. I've learned something powerful through all this. You can give your heart to a company, but never let them own your worth. Titles vanish. Offices close. But your knowledge, your skills, your grit, that's yours. If you've ever been pushed aside, silenced, or told you didn't matter, hear this. Your value doesn't die when their approval ends. Sometimes, losing everything is just the first step towards something so much more. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment like this? A time when you had to fight for your own worth? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this resonated, hit the like button so others can find it. Share it with someone who needs the reminder. They are more powerful than any title, any setback, any lie. And if you want more stories about power, justice, and rewriting endings, subscribe. Join this space. Because here, we don't just survive. We take back the pen.